So we've invited two people to present in this next section. I'm going to introduce both of them, and rather than come back up just again for the sake of expediency. First is going to be Sari. Sairanen, known to many of you, is National Health and Safety Director at the Canadian Auto Workers, responsible for the content of health and safety training programs, submissions for better laws, information on workplace substances, the establishment of programs to eliminate hazardous workplace conditions, and the publication of the Health and Safety Environment newsletter. She comes to the National Union from the Airline Division, which represents members from coast to coast to coast in Canada. Sari began her union activism as a health and safety representative in a call center where she confronted ergonomic and working condition issues such as computer workstations, task design, stress, and electronic monitoring. She additionally served on the Air Canada Bargaining Committee as a regional representative and as president of Local 2002 during the CCAA Companies Creditors Arrangement Act for bankruptcy proceedings. So we're going to hear from Sari first, who's going to talk about issues from the title. Economic realities of working life. More from the science and law perspective will be Dana Scott following Sari. Dana is my esteemed colleague at York. She's a professor at the Osgoode Hall Law School and the Faculty of Environmental Studies at York University. She teaches in the areas of environmental and administrative law, and since 2008 she's been the director of the National Network on Environment and Women's Health. She researches the environmental justice movement in Canada and the regulation of pollution and toxic substances. Some of you might know Dana's name in the context of some really important work that she's been doing in Aamjiwnaang with Aamjiwnaang First Nation north of here with fellow co-workers who are also here, some of them are also here. So we'll start with Sari and then move to Dana.
Great, thank you, Anne, and thank you everyone for your patience. I know Dana and I are standing between you and lunch, so we'll try and whet your appetite. The topic that I've been given to give you about 10 minutes on is the economic realities of working life. And sometimes that's the elephant in the room that we can't talk about, and as you heard from my bio, I was the local president of 2002, which is the, I don't know now, membership numbers, second or third largest local in the CAW, and representing members from coast to coast. And when Air Canada went into bankruptcy protection on April 1st, 2003, I became the president on October 31st on Halloween Day of that year. And certainly what you heard from members, the fear of losing their job, and it was like, don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat on a number of different issues. Certainly health and safety issues is just phenomenally, don't rock the boat. And when I started in the call center, I do have an academic background of sorts. I have a degree in economics, and I was really interested in ergonomics when I was working on my thesis. And one of the issues when I walked into the call center was how labor intensive it was. And I started in June, and in the summer, as one of the junior employees, you're sort of put into wherever you can fill in for summer relief. And of course, the senior agents had the summer off, so the department that they worked in was called ticketing, or Jurassic Park. And as I went into that workplace, they had banquet tables, not very different from the tables that we have here at the front. And then the chairs were very nice office chairs, but they wouldn't fit underneath the desks. And at the time, 17, 18 years ago, it was still ticketed travel. It wasn't ticketless travel. So the tickets came off of a printer, and there was 500 in the bundle, and your 8-hour shift, you ripped those tickets. All day long, this is what you did, and you stood. So you can just see where the pain is going to start. And I would see mainly a female workforce at the beginning of their shift, pop a Tylenol or an aspirin. I'd say, oh, do you have a headache? And they go, well, no, my shoulder is acting, or you know, my neck's kind of stiff, I'm in pain, so This is what I need to get through my shift. And then I started looking at the workstations and making suggestions. I wasn't a health and safety rep yet, but as a member, you have lots of power to put suggestions forward to your health and safety reps and to your joint health and safety committees if you have one in your workplace. And I started making suggestions, some very simple suggestions, and also change of the work process. But time and time again, I would get resistance. They would say to me, "Don't rock the boat. I only have a few years left, a few months left until retirement." And I said, "Well, I have many years left for retirement. This is not what I want to have for the workplace." And you started to have the conversation with the rest of the workers and the members in the workplace. And we were quite successful in getting a sub-ergonomic committee, getting the employer to recognize the financial burden that they were accumulating as a result of workers' comp cases and repetitive strain injuries, and tying those two together to the working conditions and having that conversation. But it didn't happen overnight. Those conversations don't happen overnight. And as we've seen historically how we have been able to, as workers, as labor movement, have different challenges, going way back into having a 9-hour workday, of having vacation, of having health and safety reps in the workplace, of having joint committees in the workplace, and campaigning and legislating these changes in the workplace. It's all been through the momentum that we've been able to garner as workers, being affected. You don't have an employer that comes to you and says, "Guess what? This is what we're going to do and it's going to be good for you." Usually when they say it's going to be good for you, you know that, oh, okay, they're ramping up the speed on the line, or there's going to be some other revolutionary work process or chemical that's being introduced that is not beneficial to me. So the ideology in workplaces and management schools have always been about, or close to, of how competitiveness is good for workers as well. Well, is that really true? Have we really seen that it's been good for me? If anything, what has happened in our workplaces is, yeah, a lot of the rock the boat. Don't do that. As I am in such a financial duress of ensuring that I am able to survive and put food on the table to my family. And it doesn't help when the economic realities certainly face us on a day-to-day basis. And Windsor is not an exception to that. In the last 10 years, or even before that, we've seen how employers have been amalgamating their production processes, how companies have been devastated by really erroneous trade agreements that our decision makers, our politicians have taken place or have adopted. And I just did a small search of some of the auto parts plant closures that have happened in Ontario in just short memory of 5 to 6 years from now. And I'm not going to sort of name the plants, but you may recognize some of them. A plant of 35 members, they had to occupy that plant for 5 days so that they could get their money's severance, which is law, that you have to get severance. But somehow employers feel that I don't need to do that. I don't need to give that severance. There's still money owed to these workers. 135 members, again, lost their jobs. Some of them have won their severance. 151, they had to boycott in order to get their severance monies. Again, these are legal obligations that employers, companies must adhere to under Canadian law. 151, I just said, boycotted. 70 people had to pressure the big three in bargaining to be able to get their severance paid. 385 are still waiting for monies owed to them. 385 families. This is not some statistical, well, it is a statistical number, but these are 385 heartbeats that are in our communities and have families and extended networks into the community. 140 occupied a plant to get their monies. 400 had to use some muscle and tactics with the employer to get their severance paid. And that's occupations, and we've seen the occupations in the newspapers, in the news stories of what they've had to do to get their monies. And the list goes on. We've estimated very conservatively that in the last decade in manufacturing, which is the basin of the economic realities of our country, there's been over 500,000 workers that have lost their jobs. And these are not temporary losses, these are permanent losses. And the jobs are not coming back. The decisions that are being made are such that the conditions are not going to be for these plants to reopen. So you have to then look at where do you move to face those changes that you can in your workplace. I want to end off on a very positive note, because over the years, all of these campaigns, occupations, uprisings that working people have taken on have resulted in health and safety legislation. We do have legislation. We do have health and safety reps mandated by law in our workplace at joint committees. But what we've also been able to do is get institutions that are worker-friendly. Worker Health and Safety Center, the OCAL Clinic. I know Mark's just looking straight at me, the Occupational Health Clinic for Ontario Workers, which is unique in Canada to Ontario. We have 5 clinics here that are healthcare professionals, occupational professionals that look after workers' needs. It's not everywhere in Canada, but we're fortunate here in Ontario to have that. So certainly Labour has allies, we continue to make new allies and friendships and working relationships as we've done today through this workshop. So there are very severe economic realities, but as we see coming together, we're not an island unto ourselves. We do have lots of community support, lots of research support, lots of legal support, as we'll hear from Dana, of how we move forward to ensure that we do have those safe environments, not only to ourselves now, but the next generation of our children and grandchildren. Thank you.